Hello, and welcome to the first instalment of the Code 60, the show where motorsport is discussed and the 2016 Manor MRT05 is worshipped, and rightly so. On this show, we'll be talking about many different things relating to, well, unsurprisingly, cars, motor racing, all that sort of thing, and luckily, I'm not doing it by myself. I mean, I know this is the channel where I ramble quite a lot, and we embrace the ramble, but doing it by myself would be kind of dull eventually. In fact, in my opinion, if I listened to myself for even 10 seconds, I'd definitely get bored. But you all lot seem to enjoy it, but even better, as I have two people alongside me. So, I'll introduce them. Firstly, I'm alphabetical order, I'll introduce this person next. They don't have, well, I say they don't. They do have a name, but it's not really known. But they are better known as the Corvette-loving person on the Fail Race channel. Introduce yourself and say hello, Lombo.
Hello. Well, my name is, but nobody calls me that. It's not a mystery anymore. I've ruined the mystery.
You ruined the mystery. I wasn't asking you, but I was just. I don't know if it was a mystery, but like that could have just stayed. You know, we could. Oh well, not that it makes. I mean, that makes now on the Fail Race thing. Anyway, that's a side thing, and that's anyway. And we have a third person, or I guess a third co-host, and it's someone who is not statistically, is actually genuinely faster than Niels Coolan. Introduce yourself, Steph.
Hi, I'm Steph, and I am actually faster than Niels Coolan by a whopping, I believe it was 13 thousandths. I think it was.
Yeah,
on the fastest lap. Not on average, so we won't talk about the averages, but I was quicker. Pure pace.
Low fuel, fresh tires. Run.
Oh, that slipstream.
I did have a slipstream. I'm not going to lie. I was following a quicker car.
To be fair, Niels also could have had a slipstream. You know, we don't know that. Unlike the Indy 500, where lap times are in qualifying, at least there's a separate tow lap and a non-tow lap. And Fun Cup and Fun Cup at Zolder, I'm not sure that they have the technological capability to recognise what's a tow lap and not. But anyway, the hard fact is you were faster, and that's all that matters, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've printed it out and framed it and hung it on the wall.
It'll never be sold. Eventually, you could probably put it in like an art museum, like sell it to an art museum and pay millions of if that's how the art market.
Oh, definitely. Works. I only need to get it signed by him.
How content do you think he would be to sign that? Like, oh yeah, no, great, thanks. Thanks for reminding me of this.
That's just a bit of fun. Anyway, I don't think it keeps him awake at night. You know.
Well, I mean, probably.
Career is in shambles.
Where will he go? What is he gonna do? I mean, that's a question for another day. I mean, we could talk about him, but there are many other more relevant things. There are many more relevant things to discuss in the world of racing. Now, because this is the first episode, and we're kind of doing this on a wing and a prayer in a way. We got some stuff that we kind of know what we're going to talk about, but we're kind of making it up as we go along. However, as this is the first episode, and as the audience, we are appreciative of your feedback. If you have any suggestions or even things you'd like us to talk about, especially over the off season where, well, it's the off season for a reason and nothing happens, then yeah, just leave them down in the comment section and we'll maybe embrace some of them. We definitely can't guarantee all of them, but fan engagement, it's important, and we care about our audience on the Code 60.
We will answer all of your questions,
and we have the best
single one.
We're the best fans. You guys are great. Love you all. Best fans.
We have the best fans.
Yeah.
Such an amazing atmosphere here. We have the best fans. Incredible.
Imagine how well this. Maybe in the future we could do like a live in-person podcast. Imagine if it got to this state. I mean, maybe it's a little difficult. Like, there'll be potentially a while away because I'm from the UK. Steph is from Belgium, and
yes,
and obviously Lombo, you're in the world of Canadian land, which is Might be a while
in the
away.
middle.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Well, it's yeah. Well, maybe if this does well, then maybe if there's enough, maybe if we become like the Spotify #1 or YouTube podcast #1, eventually that might happen. But that anyway, that's
I think for that to happen, we need to make it through the intro first. And actually,
no, the intro will go on forever.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
the
okay.
whole
Well,
episode is the intro.
the episode, yeah, exactly. So in that case, let's move on to, I guess the first. Well, the initial subject that I was going to bring up. It's not this. It's not the Lando Norris Max Verstappen battle, because we kind of, I think a lot of people have discussed the battle, and it was fantastic up until that moment, and I understand. but the more it's just more of a broader question about why we need basically add gravel, as Anthony Davidson practically pleaded to
plead for it.
yeah, just I don't, and I know there are some reasons why, which I will, I guess, outlay, because I know there'll be some people potentially mentioning this. One, there's primarily a bike racing thing, because there's raised curbs, which is an issue, and the gravel, if it was gravel, apparently makes a fall harder or less comfortable. Not that I would imagine. And again, I've never been on a bike, and I've certainly never crashed a bike, that's for sure. And so I don't know what crashing a bike feels like, but I imagine
not good. I imagine.
No, not good. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I'd like to imagine. Well, I wouldn't like to imagine, but I would imagine it is pretty uncomfortable, no matter what it is. But apparently, if it's gravel, it is particularly harsh. I guess the sharp edges of stones could make it, which is I understand that. And then there's also a thing that Max Verstappen himself said, which I'm surprised he said to a degree, but he mentioned track days, where obviously circuits need to be operatable in some form or another when there's no motor cars on a racing environment at weekends. Then yeah, I mean, obviously it costs money to yoink cars out of gravel, and it makes a mess of the gravel trap, I guess, and so on, and it means that there's less track time for the people who have paid.
I have heard that from that track, and for like Abu Dhabi. I know it's why Abu Dhabi is the way that it is because of track days and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you can have track days with gravel traps.
You could, for sure. I mean, there's plenty of tracks that have track days that are far more unforgiving than that. So it's kind of a silly argument, for sure.
I guess it's coming from the argument of not needing recovery vehicles, but
Yeah,
then you would need one if there's a mechanical.
Exactly,
you need one anyways.
yeah,
so I don't think you can even operate without a recovery vehicle.
Exactly. I mean, I in some ways I know it's a slightly different situation, but I've been to like test days, sort of not that at Snetterton in my local track, and they not that I've seen very many stoppages, but I've seen it was I think it was like a British GT test, or at least there were 2 British GT cars, and I didn't see what happened, but in some form or another, it was a GT4 Ginetta, and I think there was I can't remember the other thing. It was some form of GT vehicle, and they had a coming together, and there were 2 recovery vehicles. So I know it was a test day and so on, but I guess you pay more for a test day in some ways than a track day. Not that I've compared prices or anything like that, but I guess it's like
extensive looking up of how much it costs to test. What are you testing? Yeah. What do you want to reveal today on this podcast that you're testing for?
I wish above anything that I had something like mega to reveal, but no, I mean, don't get me wrong. If someone asked me to go on a racetrack, and whether that be in preferably in a race environment, and certainly then I would, if so long as they're prepared to at the moment not earn any money from me whatsoever, then yeah, I mean, but that's a long way away. Unless I'm incredibly lucky, then yeah. But no, nothing spectacular to reveal. But at the same time, they still have recovery vehicles. And when I was a lot younger, and when for me track days were like actual race cars on the racetrack. I mean, silly looking back at it now, but even then, when people in their Volkswagen Golfs were going straight across the sort of at the end of the Hamilton Straight and cutting through the chicane and so on, and there would be stoppages, and there used to be very regular stoppages as well, especially when like those floppy markers would fall out and so on, and I imagine they have to be changed on a regular basis. So, I mean, there's a separate argument of why we even need the floppy markers in the first place, but anyway.
I think what I said at the time was, they 100% could put a gravel trap there because, like, they literally build entire tracks for F1. I don't think adding a gravel trap is that big of a deal. I know that they make temporary changes to other circuits for F1 now, so really adding a gravel trap for a race is probably not that big of a deal.
I'd like to,
especially in only one or two areas.
I was gonna say, yeah, like even like the little strips of gravel. I mean, it's for me, it's not a complete solution. I mean, it has had a positive change, and obviously, that then gets replaced by, by its typical, tarmac runoff when the bikes are back in town. So I don't see why, I'm sure there are reasons why and so on, but because when I guess I've already stated to you, or you, Lombo, a couple of days ago, but I said when I went to when I did the National Motorsport Academy video, and I'd stay behind with the guys, and then when I left, because racing had like long been over because the weather was appalling. It was practically, it was almost hydroplaning on the straight towards Cops. And once racing was done, I then about after an hour racing had finished, and then I saw barriers be constructed, which looked as though there was those. They're not styrofoam, but there's those big. I still can't remember the name of it. It's basically those like big air like the air barriers sort of things, if you know what I'm trying to say. It looked as though they were being constructed by marshals at Cops and so on, and I'm thinking, when I sort of saw that incident with Verstappen and Norris, and I sort of see it with others, and I'm thinking, well, most of the barrier had been constructed, I'm thinking put
inflatable big squishy things onto the track. Is that what you were thinking? Yeah. Just inflatable barriers on the exits of corners.
I mean, firstly, thank you for finding the word that I was trying to look for, inflatable. But no, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was.
It'd be funny though.
I mean, it would be hilarious. It would be hilarious, but then perhaps that would. I'm not sure the FIA would approve.
No, they just put actually even that, or even just like the styrofoam barrier, so they just like explode into a million pieces when they hit it.
Yeah, some ARCA raced it, like I think Toledo Speedway, or I might be. There's at least one speedway or short oval in ARCA that definitely uses. Or I certainly used to use them, which was I can't imagine that. Like, surely that must be really expensive. I guess it's a very cheap material and quite useful in its intended impact, but I'd imagine it's probably quite a faff, especially having to clear it up and so on. But anyway, but no,
my styrofoam, so it just blows away, so it's fine.
Oh, well, yeah, but then the styrofoam peels away from the other styrofoam block. So therefore, then the styrofoam block would be deemed compromised. So therefore, we'd have to get more styrofoam blocks, and then that gets crashed into, and then the whole process goes over in one big sort of, wall food chain, so to speak.
Unfortunately,
yes. But I get the point I was trying to say is, like, if they can construct a barrier, and I believe it was because there was bike racing after the weekend I was at. If they can, I don't know that 100%, but I'm relatively sure it was. But if they can construct a barrier in the space of about, nearly construct a whole barrier at one corner, and Cops is obviously quite a wide a lot of runoff there, or at least a lot of track to have your off track moment in, then how hard would it be necessarily to put in a bit more gravel? I don't. Yes, you would need a recovery vehicle, but especially especially if you've got recovery vehicles on, on track and so on, on the race weekend, or even for the other purposes that we've outlined for track days and testing, then yeah, I don't see what the. I mean, the only other thing I can think of is maybe it or because if it did take a bit of time, then I guess that's one less day of track time. Although that being said, there are some days where tracks are closed for literally no action on track whatsoever, just for general maintenance. So well, I don't necessarily even see to a degree that argument either. So I'm sure there are reasons. It just, to me, it just puzzles, because we get the I'm not going to use Andrea Stella's term, because whilst it is technically true, I want to try and be creative and say that it was a fantastic piece. It's the sort of motor racing that gets racing nerds like us sort of very excited and giddy, so to speak. Then it does kind of. Well, I'll still remember the battle because I like motor racing, but people who aren't so hardcore like us per se, all they'll remember is the controversy about how the ultimate move that happened, and everyone's going to forget.
I do think it was a great battle, but yeah, unfortunately, the latter part of it just overshadows it a little bit, or quite a lot.
Quite a lot.
Yeah, it pretty much is there. Yeah, it's just like everything everybody is talking about, but it's that is for sure a shame. But and then while I think a gravel trap would certainly help, I don't think it stops the stupid issue with the rules. The rules are stupid, and it'll be a factor on other tracks. So unfortunately, it's a partial solution. It's not a total solution.
Oh, yeah.
There's only one way to solve the rules issue, and that is change the rules.
Yeah, I hope they do look at them.
What I am looking at, not the actual overtake itself, but like into turn one.
Yeah.
What was Lando doing? What was that? I just don't know what it was.
You mean
at first it seemed like, is he going to let it by?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It seemed like he was sort of like hesitating, and then he dives to the inside. Away. Yeah,
I don't know if it was before the break.
I think he really was thinking. I think he was debating to himself whether or not he should let him back by, because I don't really see why he didn't pull away more. After that, especially since the Red Bull isn't particularly even strong in the last sector. It's really stronger in the first part of the lap. But I think for me, I think it was the hesitation of whether or not he should give the position back, which honestly, the hesitation of that indecision is probably what cost him the position. Like, I feel like if you committed to just pulling ahead, I think he would have gotten the 5 seconds ahead that he needed. I think he was ended up being 4 seconds ahead or something. So it was definitely, I think, possible that he could have done that. And so I can't fault the decision that he made. Well, I can't fault the decision to not give the position back, because I think the risk of giving it back and then having to fight, and then who knows what the conclusion of that is. There's no guarantee that Lando would have gotten by. There's certainly every possibility that there could have been contact, or who knows, right? So there's tons of possibilities in that, whereas just trying to build a gap is, I think, inherently less risky. I just wish they would have been more decisive about it.
Yeah, it's. I was very confused. So I was thinking because before the the moment happened, all of the a lot of the moments when Norris was actually getting quite close to passing Verstappen was into turn one, which I guess it was, maybe that was just the way the energy was being restored in the Red Bull or something like, or the McLaren or something like that. But then as soon as I saw Verstappen, because I wasn't really looking all that intently at that time. I was looking, I think it might have been at the NASCAR race or something like that. And I then just sort of look up, and then all of a sudden I just see that I just see Verstappen all of a sudden become really close. I think, what? That's that he struggled. Like Verstappen really struggled every single time for several laps trying to come out of the final corner compared to the McLaren, and then all of a sudden it's like the DRS effect has become really powerful or something like that. But no, it was I that perhaps was the hesitation, if there was any in that moment, but no, it was just more. I think it was maybe the reason I think that the Red Bull particularly struggled at the last corner on most occasions was because I think every time, because I compared Verstappen's defensive job to what Alonso did in Brazil to Perez, where at the, I guess, effectively the last corner in Brazil, Alonso took an alternative sort of wider line, which he somehow managed to find a way which disturbed Perez enough, and in some ways, managed to help the Aston Martin get a fantastic run onto the main straight, where the DRS effect wasn't quite powerful enough. And Verstappen was doing a similarish thing at that at the hairpin at Austin, going for a slightly wide line, and Norris was cutting to the inside, and it was again a very canny piece of driving, but no, it's, that moment. That moment is, I guess, bittersweet in some ways, and it's sort of detracts from the good part. And I guess that kind of comes on to something else I was maybe going to at least briefly touch upon, which is, I say briefly touch upon. Basically, I was going to come up with what I would do if I was in charge of racing. Basically, and I'm not talking about a NASCAR thing. Let's have no rules.
I did, yeah. No rules.
I see a few issues with that happening, maybe.
Okay. I'm going to caveat this. When I say no rules, I'm not saying that you can't just dive bomb from like 20 million miles behind and then bash a car in another car out of the way, and then
it's not no rules.
Yeah, exactly. Like...
All right. Okay. Right. What I mean is, there's no guidelines. There's no Okay, no guidelines race. No, but that's the same. Okay, right. Okay, you'll still be penalised for certain instances that occur on the racetrack.
I think,
however,
the problem is that you have to define what that is, and at that point, you're just making rules.
Honestly,
that is true.
For me, honestly, if you just do like axles alongside, you need to leave a space. Done.
Yeah.
If the car,
it would be pretty much.
Let's say if you are on the outside and the car on the inside does not leave you space to stay on the track, and you have to go off, then there's also no discussion of leaving the track and gaining an advantage. You can just continue to fight, and if you take the position, you take the position because you were forced off. The other car did not leave you the racing room, so you have to go off the track to make it. So therefore, I don't feel that you were gaining an unfair advantage because you were forced there.
Yeah.
And I would hope that this would start.
I think that's right.
Give people oh Jesus Christ! This would help people, give space, but not for me. The worst thing isn't even like the driving standards that are being used now with the forcing of track, and obviously Max knows the rules very well. But for me, the problem is what it does to all the upcoming drivers in the lower formulas and lower, because they see this and they think, aha, it's okay to just dive it in there, and if I'm first, then I can force them off. And that's not good, because we are not teaching them good racing.
It's definitely an exploit in the rules. I think it was definitely not the intention of the rules, but it is an exploit of the rules as they're written, and I think they should do their best to figure out a way to close that, because I do think definitely lower class is affected by, what the top examples of racing are. I don't think healthy. And to be honest, I've never met a fan who's like, oh yeah, I'm really glad that I'm really glad that they're not given space. I've never met another fan who's just like, oh yeah, these rules are great the way they are. So I don't know. Maybe there's a certain dichotomy between what the fans want to see and what the racers want, because obviously, I don't know what a lot of drivers' perspectives are on the issue.
Yeah.
So I would like to research more on what drivers have said about the rules and what they think that it could be improved. But I do think that the fan experience certainly is affected, and I think when they were talking, you mentioned Davidson, but then he threw back to like Button and the other Sky group, and everything that Button said, I agreed with 100%. Because Davidson explained it perfectly about why it was a penalty for Lando in that case, and other cases, why Oscar got a penalty in the sprint race, and everything made sense, or why Russell got a penalty in the race, and it made sense in the interpretation of the rules, and then Button's just like, that is stupid. This is stupid. This is definitely not what was intended of the rules, and someone going off track in order to push someone further off track is not what racing should be.
Yeah, no, see, this is what I appreciate the downsides to where my no rules thing comes in, but for me it's regulations are obviously important, clearly, and you can't with it. Well, I guess with too loose regulations, then you can descend to a different sort of racing. I think it's a case of the main point maybe I guess put it across was because racing is there are an enormous amount of variables in racing. There's like how much speed you take in, like throttle, braking application, steering angle, where you are on the track, where other cars are on the track, what track dimensions, what part of the tracks are accessible to a motor vehicle, and what parts aren't. So, and there's a load more other bits and bobs to consider in that sense, along with the rules and I guess any intentions a driver has, or like how a driver reads the current rules, and so I that's why I said that or at least have the theory, whilst it's flawed, I definitely can understand that. Then that's why I think to a degree you can, if there was no if there was no rules and you can base let the stewards base a decision purely on the just what they have. Well, I believe they have all the data they need to make a decision on at least what they can see, and then irrespective of what the rules say, especially if there's a racing driver as a steward there, then they'll hopefully know what good racing etiquette is, and they can make a decision just based on their opinion of what whether it's fair or not fair, or deemed a good overtake, a clean and fair overtake. And so instead of how deciding on I guess instead of looking at rules which can maybe convolute certain things, or maybe obviously not intend, but clearly no one is intending to make racing regulations in such a way which detract from the racing, because I mean that's silly. But it's a case of they're going to with the rules as they are, there will potentially be grey areas, or areas which as Verstappen has he's entitled to a degree to do what he has done. I mean, the morals, we can that's up for the fans to decide, obviously, but it's it's at least from and I understand the limitations. However, at least in my opinion, there is some ground, at least, to not having quite as or at least just make it a lot more up to the stewards' interpretations or by themselves, and not having to look at a rule book. That's all. That's all I'm suggesting.
I do
Anyway,
think
but
that F1 needs just a general rule cleanup, because I don't think it's been done for a very long time. It just needs a
Yeah.
refresh, just entirely. Even technically in other things, there's so many, I don't know, rules that are just rules upon added rules upon added rules,
Yeah.
as opposed to actually amending it into something that's readable. I mean, hot off the presses, I just saw a story just popped up. It says plans coming together for full IndyCar race at Thermal Club.
Oh no. Where? Okay, where is it? Where's
This
the?
is on Racer, but
Oh, okay.
it's I just saw the story right now, and I'm just like, no.
Wasn't that where they did like the $1 million challenge or something?
Yeah, that's when they did the
Yeah.
$1 million challenge.
Yeah,
but
wasn't
the
that a
actual
complete
track was
disaster?
just boring as hell.
Yeah,
It's just not a good track for racing.
It was just. I mean, I think part, at least for me, partly why it maybe didn't help that time was there was about let's just like, was it like sort of like 4 hours of practice for for like 2 or 3 days or something like that, and then qualifying was like 6 minutes per, like, for two different groups, and then the races were like, basically there was an enormous amount of practice compared to the actual races themselves, which kind of meant that like the drivers were pretty much dialed in, or like as dialed in as they could be, really. And I for the Indy 500 it works, but for that I'm not sure it does. Let's just say I hope it is. I hope it's better this. Maybe if it's a lot like an actual, like maybe as a motor race rather than like a sort of exhibition style event, it might work better. I guess I'm clutching at straws. Some would argue,
I'm
but,
hesitant on that. I mean,
yeah,
the racing, even with the few cars there wasn't good.
yeah.
So I don't know.
Maybe
Maybe they'll change the layout or something. Maybe it'll make
Yeah,
a difference. But
yeah. Because
Yeah.
I think there was at least talk of that they could at least, because there's like there's loads of different layouts, so maybe they could, because I think there's like it's like a 4 or 5 mile layout or something, like it's like it's longer than the one that than they used last year, so maybe they could do that as a difference. I don't know. It's I mean, like maybe just something to spice it up potentially, but I don't know. I know there was a lot. There was, or at least some, a sort of displeasure amongst the fans that the fact that this track is even being used at all. So I think,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's. I can understand to a degree. I appreciate it's a very. It's contentious in I guess the sort of track that it is. So yeah, I understand. I maybe I think it's just good for what, like it's good for its main purpose, but it doesn't. I don't think it really should serve any other purpose. Like testing, perhaps if they want to do testing, then sure. But race, I think for
I
racing,
think testing would be the best role for that.
yeah, exactly.
For sure.
I can understand that, but like for a race, especially as the races, at least in exhibition form, weren't great. So I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, at the very least, it's like we can say in your case, Lombo, we can at least say that it was it was one of the two events where one of your favorite drivers did get their IndyCar career, so to speak, and Colin Brown. So
That's true.
so yeah,
But he's back in sports cars where he belongs.
yes.
I think.
So do you know what? That is unintended.
Perfect transition.
Awesome
There we go.
segue. Perfect segue. That's why you brought it up, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll got to that. But anyway, yeah. But just as a wider sort of, I guess a wider point. But yes, well, there's been an enormous amount of news from the IMSA ranks of driver changes, or driver news in general. I'll run it through so that any viewers who aren't aware, they get at least some indication of what it is. So at Penske, or at least Penske Porsches, it's Matt Campbell, Matthew Jaminet, and I must admit I can't remember which are full season drivers and which are like the Endurance Cup and
I
Daytona
think
only
it's
drivers.
Campbell and Estra for a full season, I think.
But
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think. It's definitely. I know for the 7, it's definitely Nazar and Tandy, because Vanta is. I'm pretty sure not going to do the.
No, he's the
probably
endurance add-on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, over on Wayne Taylor Racing, they're obviously switching to the Cadillac, but they're keeping a mostly static lineup. It's there's Felipe Albuquerque, Hartley, Will Stevens, which is a cool and interesting choice for the Daytona only race, and then Ricky Taylor, because Louis Delatraz and Jordan Taylor. Is it? Yeah, is it? Yeah, it is Jordan. Isn't it? Is Jordan Taylor who's the main full season driver? And they have Alex Lynn, and Kobayashi is there as well. Which, I mean, that's a surprise. We might go on to that later. The Wheeling Cadillacs, Jack Aitken is now joined by El Bamba instead of Pipo Durrani, and yeah, yeah, exactly. And Frederick Vesti is a very interesting choice for the Michelin Endurance races.
I don't really know that much about him, to be honest.
I didn't even know he did endurance racing. I can't actually recall him.
So
yeah.
So Vesti had been.
I think he did ELMS and with Cool Racing or something.
So
it's like a test. Sort of.
Awesome name, by the way. Cool Racing. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's not as good as Road Shagger Motorsport. Anyway.
Well. Okay. He's Vesti's been racing in was in Formula 2 up until the end of last season. Has done some testing and I think he's still a reserve driver for Mercedes, the Mercedes F1 team. Not that with the kindest of respects, I don't expect him to be in maybe if Toto Wolff decide if either Kimi Antonelli or George Russell get injured, then maybe he might think, I'll put Vesti in over Mick Schumacher, which I'm sure Mick Schumacher will be. I'm sure that. I mean, if that's not that would be he'd be. I dread to think.
I kind of feel that Schumacher is sort of like a proven quantity. We know. I'm not saying in a good way. I'm just saying we know what his level of performance and ability is. I mean, he had a long enough time. It's sort of like whether or not you want, have someone who their performance level and it's sort of average versus potential upside with a rookie. Though I don't really know. I heard someone. I don't really know their F2 or ELMS results.
Vesti was in Prema and ART for I think for the couple of F2 seasons he did. He was with ART and Prema, which is the top teams. Vesti was second last year in 2023 in F2. So and then
and yet honestly I remember him as being nothing special. From watching too.
I think he was
more consistent than bold. Yeah.
He was
honestly more consistent is probably good for endurance racing.
I was gonna say he was
very true.
I think when he did he got sick. Well, I think I'm not gonna lie. I am looking at his wiki profile, but I did know a reasonable amount before. I did know a reasonable amount beforehand anyway. But I wouldn't admit to knowing that he had 6 wins in his F2 campaign in 2023, and he got second in the championship. Who was it who won? And let's not delve into that. We got to talk about the IMSA thing anyway. So I'm going to briefly just sort of say what his career is.
Just if I can quickly pinch in on this, I've brought up some timing data from the last ELMS race because, of course, I have.
Right.
And I do see him. What is this? Roughly top 15-ish. If I look at his fastest on his average lap, so it's not too bad. It's right in there with Tristan Vautier. I can see in there.
Oh,
Arthur
the
Leclerc above him,
wait,
which is
the almighty Tristan Vautier, is that? Oh wow!
yeah,
Now that's the sign of an excellent racing driver. If you can match Tristan Vautier, then the almighty Tristan. I think we've.
yes,
I mean,
but even more impressive, and this is someone who I very much like from his F2 days, Felipe Drogovic.
Yeah,
Yes,
Very good driver. Really, really rate him.
Oh,
yeah,
I think he's
be
fantastic.
interesting. You
yeah.
would think you would probably be in an Aston Martin shoe-in, probably.
I hope so.
Obviously, he did drove the Cadillac this year at
Yeah.
Le Mans, but I
Yeah.
think for Vesti, if someone is being consistent, then I think that sort of speaks to a mindset where they consistently make good decisions, of where, of course luck or fortune comes into play too, but I do think it speaks to someone who makes better decisions than not.
Yeah.
even if they're maybe not the quickest. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's. I would describe like there's. I wouldn't say that he's. I'm clearly I don't know his. I'm not in his like an engineer who knows the data and all that sort of thing. But at least from just a visual perspective, he's good. He's nothing that I've seen that makes him, in my eyes at least, as though he's like a generational talent. But he's done okay in his. Well, I mean, getting second in F2 has got to be pretty decent, and I think he's so since he's transitioned to sports cars, I think he's made more progress. I think he has had one IMSA start already when he did. I think he was at Tower Motorsports at the Petit Le Mans. I must admit I can't remember where that car finished. I know it definitely didn't win, but
Towers are very inconsistent because their
I was
lowest ranked driver is
but yeah,
not very quick. But
yeah,
obviously they must have tested Vesti, and obviously they were impressed with how he did in the test, I imagine.
Well, you say that, but I believe, and it's not. This is not linked in any way, but there's in the it's the postseason WEC test. The young drivers. I'm pretty sure Vesti is included on the Cadillac roster.
Is, yeah.
So I imagine that might. I guess that maybe that has a thing to do with it and so on. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets on, especially with the likes of Aitken and Bamber alongside. Especially Bamber's got huge amounts of endurance experience, and well, I mean, I think we all know how good he is. Let's put it that way. Aside from that,
he has grown to crashing a lot though lately.
Well, okay. When he's when he's when he gets it all together, he's pretty darn good. Let's put it that way. But yeah,
definitely. But he doesn't have a knack for getting himself in trouble lately. Is it because the Cadillac is out of position all the time? Maybe.
Yes, I think it's that.
It's definitely not helping.
That I'm like all the time the Cadillac's pushing like to hell because it's in like a terrible position because of some other bad thing that happened earlier in the race. He has to overtake so many cars, and that just introduces so much risk into any race. But yeah, for sure, he's definitely he's made some bad decisions. Some of them, I could blame him more than others. There even in some cases where I'm like, oh yeah, that was a bad decision. I think I could see why he made the decision that he did. There was never a case where I'm like, oh yeah, that was just pure stupidity. It was always like, yeah, I could see why he made that decision. It wasn't a good one, but I could see why he did that. But yeah,
are you trying to vaguely link this to the moment at Spa this year?
I could see why he made that decision, especially because
but I feel
was weaving. I mean, he made
the defense was on it. I don't think the defense was very clean either.
No,
I think was it Neil Yanni that was driving? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I think so.
It was the Proton
Yeah.
Porsche.
It was the Proton, yeah.
Yeah, I think
So-
it was Yanni. It wasn't
It was
Andlauer.
weaving all over the place. I see why he
It's
moved
just
the way that he did.
the move was quite late for me. The defensive move.
Yeah, it was very late. But obviously, it's unfortunately that's racing.
Yeah,
True.
exactly.
I think actually I wanted to say one more thing about the WC and like the IMSA racing and stuff like Porsche lineup. Has there ever been a time when two drivers win their respective championships and then get removed from the team, or like because Cameron wins the championship, he's dropped. Lauderer dropped.
Yeah.
Well, the first one that springs to mind for me is Damon Hill, but that's not Weck.
Yeah, definitely. It shows how ruthless Porsche is with their lineup.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
honestly, for me, I can't speak on who was in IMSA car again? Why did complete black. Dane Cameron. Yeah, I can't speak on him because I don't know of his results. On Lauderer, though, he was consistently the slowest of the three.
He was definitely the slowest of the three.
He was consistent and stay out of trouble, though, definitely. And I don't think he has had any big issues, but he has been consistently the slowest of the three.
I think he did better at Fuji. I thought he was, pretty good. So I think his performance is just maybe inconsistent.
Let me quickly get the timing data.
I
know
he was just a little bit inconsistent. The car was doing well, and I think he was doing well at Fuji, but not 100% sure. But yeah, Dane Cameron, he's just sort of anonymous. I think that's one of those cases of just, he drove well, but it didn't stand out.
Yeah, I think I'd be astounded if we didn't see him in some form or another at least in
I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in one of the privateer Porsches, for sure.
Yeah,
like
privateer
JDC, Porsche. Because obviously Westbrook is retiring. It's certainly a possibility.
Yeah, JDC would maybe work, especially because Proton are now kind of scaling back in IMSA to a Michelin Enduro only campaign. At least for now. I mean, I think there's there may still be plans to maybe if they could, but I mean for quite a lot of the season they were I guess they managed to locate Ben Viscal to be sort of their main one of the main drivers eventually, but there was was it Rockenfeller who did Long Beach, so there was a bit of conjecture as to that. So maybe if that there was that, and also especially if they're apparently going to commit to 2 cars and WEC, then that might be a bit of a thing. So yeah, but I could see Cameron taking over at least one of the seats at JDC. I think especially if he goes to JDC, I think they become a more competitive entity, because I think Richard didn't say that he was not as good, but it was he basically kind of in a loose way said, I think I've done all I can really do, and I think he was for JDC. In JDC's case, he did about as well as a team like them would want, and so on. And I think he did everything he needed to do. But I think if you did indeed replace him with Dane, so I mean, I don't know if Dane comes with a budget or a Porsche. I don't know if Dane is still part of the Porsche family, and he could
I think
do
he
that.
Still is. They didn't say that they were being removed from Porsche entirely.
Okay.
I think I was also wrong. It's going to be Campbell and Jaminet who are teamed up together in IMSA. But anyway, it's also interesting, that they took Campbell up because he was certainly one of the strongest WEC drivers, and now he's going to be racing in IMSA instead.
If I can quickly hop in on that one, because I now have the timing.
Oh, yeah?
If I look at the average, the fastest driver was Kevin Estre. It's good. But a half a tenth on average back from him, you had Laurens van Toor and Matty Campbell. Lotterer, he was only 2-3 tenths down here, so it's quite all right. Interesting ones, though. The third fastest on average, Earl Bamber.
He is really quick. He is really quick.
in between Lawrence van Toor and André Lotterer, we have Mikkel Jensen and Stoffel van Doorn in the Peugeots.
Okay.
Where they got those monster stints from, I do not know.
They finally got the car working for only a stint or two.
Oh, well, yeah.
And Julian Andlauer in the Proton Porsche, and completely
Mhm.
deserved that he is going to a factory car.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yes,
he is
For sure.
fantastic. He is fantastic.
Mhm.
Really
I
fast guy.
remember his performance. Wasn't his performance Spa certainly like especially like in this early part of the race. Wow, and Sebring is when he did Sebring this year as well. Complete, absolutely fantastic. I think he did. Again, I'm sure there's a document somewhere which says how much driver time him and the other two, who I can't remember the names of. Bruni was one of them, but I can't remember the third. But I'm pretty sure Andlauer had. Well, maybe Andlauer had. I know Andlauer ended the race, and I know he had a spin, but let's ignore that. But like when ignoring the spin, he was incredible. So I think that's a wise choice. Let's put it that way. But yeah, it's certainly interesting. I mean, there are certainly a number of seats which are still open, I guess, in some way. Well, at least not confirmed. So, the JDC car we referenced, the Proton car, no seats confirmed. I imagine I'll be amazed if we didn't see Bruni back in some form. But the Aston drivers, I don't think they've been confirmed yet. None of the BMW drivers, again, either. But, could we see Dane Cameron in a non-Porsche in GTP next year, or
I
is that a
think that
bit
most of the
optimistic?
seats are full, except for BMW. I would think BMW would be the only real place.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
I think it's
BMW
unlikely. I think a privateer is where he's going.
Yeah, that's probably most
Um,
likely.
most
I think one of the other
yeah.
things that we didn't talk about last time for sure is like Lamborghini. How it seems like their program is sort of in
It's weird what's
flux.
going on.
That they don't
Yeah.
really know what's going on. Like, are they gonna pull out of WEC? Are they trying to
There's mixed
negotiate
messages.
only running one? Or personally, I just think they should do a full season IMSA program and just forget about the WEC. But I think it just makes more sense with North America
Yeah.
being a big market for them, like the biggest market for Lamborghinis, and with the two cars, it
Competition's
would be
closer.
more. And I feel like the competition is closer. The competition, I feel like you get more attention in the
Yeah.
US, like because there are fewer cars in WEC. If you're not, if you're not Porsche, Ferrari, or Toyota, you are not going to be noticed in the other races. It just doesn't really happen because those are the only
Cadillac
teams
beg
that
to
win.
differ.
Cadillac,
begs
I
to
mean,
differ.
obviously,
You will
Cadillac
notice the
it's in
Cadillac.
my heart. Cadillac is in my heart, and they're definitely the strongest of the other teams. But they just, because they only have one car, they're very limited in the amount of exposure that they can.
Oh, they'll have two next year. So.
They will have two next year, which I'm looking forward to for sure.
Oh hell yeah, man! The
But,
Caddy and the Aston. Oi, 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 oi! Everyone,
Yeah, it's
buy your
golden
WEC
era.
tickets now.
Yeah,
Buy them now,
for
honestly.
sure.
And honestly, the
For sure.
Alpine as well. The Alpine also sounds really nice. Really, really nice.
Well, that's. Oh, I mean, well, I mean, sports car and endurance racing is just in such a good position right now. But yeah, Lamborghini
absolutely.
should. Oh yeah, I mean, Lamborghini should definitely. Well, I say definitely. I mean, there's mixed messages. Like Danny Cavilla in an interview recently sort of indicated that they were going to be back in WEC, but then there were other rumors, but there are still persistent rumors that it's in conjecture. Maybe like if you did, if Lamborghini did want to, then I mean, they're definitely confirmed for the Endurance Cup in IMSA at the moment, but there was still like this. Oh, I think Doonan hinted that there was a 49th entry that was going to be confirmed. Whether that's a Lamborghini that's now going to a full time, or it's like there's
see.
now. So there's that to, I guess, contend. But I think it'd be perhaps in some ways cooler to see the Lamborghini in IMSA. I think, well, do IMSA and also do, if they can, the Le Mans 24. Like, I know, sure, maybe the WEC people might not be so happy. But
Yeah.
let's just put it,
I
they're
don't
in
think
such a
I
good
don't think
position
they would.
anyway.
I don't think they would allow that. So that would definitely be a big blow for
Yeah.
sure.
So
Unfortunately.
yeah, but and I guess the other one thing we haven't got. We linked it to Colin Braun at the start, but we've actually completely neglected to
It's
talk
okay.
about
We don't need to
him.
talk about the Acuras.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, for those who don't know, it's Tom Blomqvist and Colin Braun in the 60, and for the 93, which is I think links back to the NSX that Meyershank used to run. Nick Yellerly is joined over from the BMW stable and is alongside Renger van der Zande. I mean, what else? I mean, I guess Nick Yellerly is an interesting addition to the Meyershank, but to at least the Acura stable. But
I think it's a good lineup,
yeah,
Yellowly and Van der
Solid.
Zande, or obviously as the commentators would like to go for Renger, Wenger, Zenger, or whatever, or whatever variation on the name they will come up with. I think it's a really, really solid
Yeah.
combo.
Solid.
Yellowly
Yeah,
as well,
absolutely.
For sure.
really rate him as a driver,
Definitely
very
potential,
strong driver.
for sure.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. It's a surprise addition, but it's a very it's
Definitely.
a very good addition for sure. And there was some GT driver news in Kenton Coach and Seth Lucas has gone from an LMP to with high class racing and is now with Korthoff Competition Motors. And they'll have Maximilian Götz in the for the endurance races. I mean, you can't go wrong, can you?
Strong driver, very experienced, proven value. He'll do the job.
He very much does a good job. Let's put it that way. But that's all the driver news. There might be
the other rumors of Dames going to Porsche. But yeah, she previously protests. I don't think that she's protesting this year in terms of. So there's in the rookie test. There's I can't remember her name. There's someone testing.
Martins. Is it Celia Martin?
Yeah,
Celia
Martins. I think
yeah.
she's testing for the Dames, probably potentially next year instead.
She did the Michelin Le Mans Cup in a Lamborghini, and obviously she's linked with the Iron Dames. So, and if the rumors are, maybe, especially with her in in the car, I think that might hint at something because obviously, Purex, Purex Racing might, because obviously Pure Racing is is linked with Manthey for that entry, but that's with their bronze-rated driver who is now going to turn to a silver, and I've forgotten the person's name, but that doesn't
Alex
matter.
Malikin.
Ultimately, Malikin. There you go. That's it. So yeah, that's gonna be a thing. But yeah, I think we basically rounded off everything that we need to talk about. I mean, normally I do well. I will be honest. We have done some practice attempts for this, and normally at the end of these, I do these little things where we basically it's a stupid little thing. It's like a funny moment that happened in something, and I give a little bit of context as to why. I'll be brutally honest. I'm not exactly sure I can give any context, or I don't think we need to say anything about this particular picture. I just think it's very good meme material.
Colapinto is just he's just the best. He's just a
Yeah.
character.
With his tongue out, with a cowboy hat Duracell F1 air, like the airbox. Oh, that's just great.
Beautiful.
I think that'll just be good meme material. Anyway,
I'm glad that actually there's another image if I can find it. I think it'd be really great meme material. But Colapinto's he's been great. He went for media training, but I didn't see any real difference between pre-media training and post-media training.
Yeah,
it
seems exactly the same. Like you wouldn't think
exactly the same. Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is again. This is why so as you're watching this may not make a huge amount of sense. I mean, you'll probably get some reference, but yeah, that's probably good. That's probably good meme material. Yes,
Who is that guy on the right?
I have no idea.
No idea. Is it a journalist of some kind? I guess.
It looks a bit like Daniel Fark, but
I want to know what they're looking at, though.
That will never know.
It's just
probably.
cats on the internet, is what it is.
Nah, I think it's just a picture of Colapinto. It's just that exact Colapinto
Yeah.
picture we're looking at.
It could be.
What Watham's going? Should I have him in my car in the future? But I mean, that's a valid question, but for the future. I mean, tell you what, here's a good way to round it off. People who are watching this, go and say in the comment section for engagement, which would be the better meme, which would make for the better meme, the journalist with the team principals or Franco Colapinto with his tongue out with a cowboy hat and an airbox Duracell thing on the. But anyway, which would make better? I don't know. This has been fun at the very least. I hope you've either watching or listening to the podcast have enjoyed it. I mean, it's certainly been interesting. Like I say, any sort of I mean, how can you improve on this? But now seriously, if you have any things you'd like to see, like any additions or anything you have opinions on the podcast to either make it better or just say how amazing we are. I don't know. Then just say in the comment section. And like I say, well, I'm not going to reply to all that. Maybe Steph and Lombo, they can reply to some of them. I don't have a lot of time to reply, but we will.
Okay.
We might be lurking about. We might be lurking about in the comments.
Yes, but beware, commenters. I've got a very nice community. I'm very happy with the community that I've somehow managed to garner. They're very, 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 very loyal, and hopefully, as just a looser sort of side point, I will hopefully be up to more regular sort of video uploading in the future. So I've been hopefully there'll be some changes that you notice going forward, which will hopefully make my mediocre quality content a bit less mediocre. I mean, this is probably the best piece of content that will be uploaded on my channel, and it doesn't totally include me, so that's why. Anyway, but and
doesn't get better than this.
Sorry,
but yeah,
sorry, I didn't hear that.
It doesn't get better than this. So it's all downhill from here on out.
No, sure. I mean, just because I'm very courteous and nice. Anything else? Any thoughts that either of you two will have before we conclude?
No, all good. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
We're happy to have you.
Awesome, right? we are indeed. This is such a great way to end the podcast. Right. Anyway. Thank you very much for watching. We will we'll wave the green flag and withdraw the code 60. But until the next podcast or the next video, whatever it may be, thank you very much for watching / listening. And until the next one, be kind to each other and enjoy the rest of your day.